Do I have to forgive? If so, who? Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Saturday, May 18th, 2024. Forgiveness seems to be the hardest part of Christian discipleship for many, many people. And yet, Scripture tells us over and over again that forgiveness is at the very heart of Christian faith. Yesterday, we read the encounter between Peter and Jesus, where Peter asked Jesus how often he should forgive. Jesus' response, 77 times, tells us something of the importance of forgiveness. Then the parable Jesus tells Peter reminds us that we forgive because God has first forgiven us. That's the very basis of forgiveness. The Apostle Paul also underlines the importance of forgiveness. In a passage I read at the end of every wedding I perform as a charge to the couple, Paul says, "As God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. Bear with one another, and if anyone has a complaint against another, forgive each other. Just as the Lord has forgiven you, so you also must forgive. Above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. Just as the Lord has forgiven you, so you also must forgive." As with yesterday's reading from the Gospel of Matthew, so also here, forgiveness is presented as pretty much a command. Now, in the routine back and forth of life in community with other people, forgiving others for slights, for unkind words, and for all manner of what I would call garden variety wrongs, forgiveness is expected, particularly within the community of faith. It's never easy, but then again, keeping a community from flying apart at the seams is not easy either. But these are garden variety offenses. What about some of the truly heinous things people do to each other? Is the victim of a violent crime obligated to forgive? What about the victim of child sexual abuse? Is that person obligated to forgive? Or how about the victims and survivors of genocide? I'm thinking especially about Holocaust survivors. Are they obligated to forgive? In these cases and many others like them, forgiveness is possible, but it's not easy. But here's the thing. No one, not you, not me, not the church as a whole, should ever say to a victim of horrible crimes that they have an obligation to forgive. To do so is to risk alienating them at best and laying a layer of undeserved guilt on top of them at worst. Anyone who has not experienced that kind of abuse is in no place to say pious, self-serving words about the need to forgive. To be clear, many will come in time to forgive, but more out of a need to be rid of the poisonous bitterness that long-term anger and resentment can engender. For them, forgiveness is as much a matter of self-preservation, self-healing, as anything else. And no one has a right to demand it. Not pious preachers, not self-righteous Christians, and certainly not perpetrators, no one. Now, if forgiveness is tough for victims of horrible crimes, there is also another kind of forgiveness that can be equally difficult, though in a very different way. It is the question of forgiving ourselves. Many of us, and I'm one, hold on to terrible memories of things that we have done in the past, hurtful words we cannot take back, ways that we have taken advantage of others or used others for our own benefit and to their harm. These and 1,000 other things we have done in the past often leave us feeling a deep sense of guilt and shame that lasts for years, even decades. To folks who experience this kind of guilt, forgiving oneself is one of the most difficult things that can be done. Yes, we know in our heads that God has forgiven us, but in our hearts, we have a hard time receiving that forgiveness. In many ways, we carry our guilt as a sign of our penitence. We wear our guilt as a symbol of our remorse. But in the end, It is more self-serving than anything else. It is also a sign that we do not really believe in our heart of hearts that God has really and truly forgiven us. Forgiving others is hard. Forgiving ourselves can be even harder. But Paul is right. Offering and receiving forgiveness ultimately reflects the fact that God has been better to us than most of us know how to be to others and to ourselves. To be clear, we are not God. We do not possess infinite grace. But how we treat others and ourselves can be a sign of God's amazing grace. And now may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.